Hi everyone, welcome back to United by Flavor, where we're on a virtual trip around the U.S. with the mission to uncover the most iconic dishes from every state. Our next stop is California. California is a food lover's paradise, and so we're breaking it up into three sections: Northern California, Central, and Southern. We're headed down the Pacific Coast Highway. Our first stop is Northern California. Northern California has so many iconic dishes, it was challenging to choose. They have access to lots of seafood, abundance of fruit and veggies and dairy from all the California farms. It's wine country. San Francisco is also home to the Ghirardelli Chocolate Company, and I guess avocado toast has been a thing since 1885. It's not just trendy now. However, we had to go with the iconic sourdough bread bowl and clam chowder. The first thing we're going to do is start with the sourdough bread bowls. To do that, you need a sourdough starter, which takes at least 5 days to make if you don't have access to one already. A couple of things you should know about me. Am I a baker? No. Have I ever made sourdough bread before? No. Have I watched every single episode of the Great British Bake Off? Yes. So this didn't go perfectly, but I am pretty pleased with the results considering it was my first time trying. And I think you should give it a try too. And yes, I know it was super trendy to make sourdough 2 years ago when the pandemic first started. I never did it, but here we are today. So let's get going. So as you can see here, we're on day 3 of making the starter and things are alive. At this point, it was necessary to move it into a larger container because it continues to grow every day as you're feeding it. And I also was storing it in the oven because it's wintertime here and I wanted it to be in the most consistently warm place. Okay, so at this point, it's been 5 days. We fed it every 24 hours with water and flour, and we're storing it at room temperature. It's ready to use. We're going to make our sourdough bread bowls. The first step we need to do is make a sponge. You take a cup of your sourdough starter and add more flour and water to it. Then you mix that all together, let it sit at room temperature. This is called proofing for 3 to 4 hours. After that's complete, you move it into the refrigerator and let it sit for 12 hours. This looked a little shaggy, I think is the term to me. So I don't know if this is where I started to go awry, but we rolled with it. As I've mentioned before, I never made sourdough, and so it was a little bit challenging not knowing what to expect. I think I'll definitely do better next time, and I think I really need to find a better way to control the room temperature. So after your sponge has set for 12 hours in the refrigerator, it's time to start making the dough. We add in bread flour, salt, and sugar, and just a little bit of water. I used more water than the recipe called for because it was just really dry to me. So we let it proof for 2 to 3 hours. After kneading it, put it in an oiled bowl, and then it should grow in size. At this point, I thought things were looking pretty good, but I'm praying here, like, please work out. I've invested so much time. It just has to work. After you let it proof for 2 to 3 hours in the oiled bowl, covered, then you take it out and you're supposed to lightly deflate it. This is again where I knew it wasn't right because there just wasn't enough air in it and it was supposed to have doubled in size. But anyways, we're going with it. So then you take your dough out, you split it into equal sections, turn it into these bread bowls, and let this proof for another 2 to 3 hours. Okay, so we're finally ready to bake it. Make sure you preheat your oven to 425 with either your baking stone or Dutch oven in the oven while it's preheating, and then keep it in there for an additional 20 minutes. Place your bowls into the pot, cover it, let it bake for about 24 minutes, turning it halfway. Look at that! It turned out, despite all challenges, it turned out. It definitely wasn't perfect, but I'm really pleased with it. It wasn't airy enough, and I know it didn't prove enough, but hey, we did it. And now look, I'm cutting the top off. We're making an actual bread bowl out of this thing. Can you believe it? I can't. The sourdough bread bowl is what makes clam chowder iconic to Northern California. The chowder itself is New England style chowder, but when you add that bread bowl in, it's Northern California all the way. Sourdough has been a staple in Northern California since the gold rush, where miners brought their own starters with them. And it really became prominent in 1849 with the opening of the Boudin Bakery. The bakery still has a flagship on the Fisherman's Wharf, and you've got to have the clam chowder with the sourdough bread bowl. It's what makes it so distinct. Okay, so we've prepped our veggies. We're bringing our clam juice to a bare simmer, and now we're making a roux. A roux is a mix of butter and flour, and we're bringing this to golden color. So it actually takes about 12 minutes to bring it to that color. There's different stages of roux. This is somewhere in the middle. Then you add in your simmering clam juice, mix it all together, and this is where things are going to start happening. It's going to get thick. You want to make sure you have no bumps, no lumps. Once you're done with that, set it to the side, and we're going to start on the rest of the soup. Put the oil down in the pan, add a few pieces of chopped up bacon, cook that down for a while, add in your celery and onions, let those saute for about 7 minutes until translucent. Then we're going to put together our spices. We have thyme, black pepper. I had thyme leaves here, so I'm just trying to crunch them up so it's more of a powder. We add in 4 cans of clams with the juice. Do not get rid of the juice. Dump it into your pot. I've never used canned clams before. Totally surprised. I loved it. Oh, and here's my dog coming to see. As soon as I busted out those clams, she smelled it and she was interested. She's like, what's going on? I want it. I want it. Anyways, then after we bring the clams, put the clams in and the seasonings in, then we add our roux, add the potatoes, cook that for 10 minutes till the potatoes are cooked. And from there, we add in half and half and milk. It was about 1 cup of each. Stir that up, cook it for another 10 minutes until everything's melded. You definitely want to make sure you're seasoning and tasting at this point. There's a lot of salty ingredients, but it still needed salt. And will you look at that? There we have it, 5 days in the making. It's a thing of beauty. The moment we've all been waiting for. Seriously, this took me 5 whole days. My daughter's reaction. Here we go. It's pretty hot.
That's really good.
Yeah, what do you think of the bread?
It's good.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna test it out. Got some oyster crackers to go with it. Come on now. Let's see. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Definitely some room for improvement with the bread making, but the soup, 10 out of 10. Yum. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you all in the next one. And don't forget to subscribe. Bye.